Good morning. All right, so I'm going to start off with telling you guys a story. There's this girl I know, and she had to make a really hard decision. She had to decide whether to save her life or whether to save the lives of thousands of people. Actually, some of you might know her. Her name's Esther. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Esther. Esther was taken from her home at the age of 13 to the king's palace. In between the age of 13 and 14, Esther went through a year-long beauty treatment, and at the age of 14, she won the king's favor and married him. In between the ages of 14 and 19, the king's right-hand man, Haman, had plotted to kill all the Jews. Esther herself was a Jew. And this meant that Esther's family, her friends, her whole community would die, and she'd be left alone. But Esther knew she could do something about this. She had an opportunity. She could stop this. She could save all of her people. So Esther decided she was going to go in front of the king's court and that she would beg for her people's forgiveness, or for their lives. Now, going in front of the king's court was a death sentence at the time, and going in front of it would be a big risk for Esther, especially as the queen. There's another thing you need to understand. Esther was a teenager. She was just like you and me. Her whole life that we know in the Bible is from when she was 13 to 19. That's what ages we are here. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to go marry the president or save the world or become a superhero, but you too are capable of great things. Esther was the queen, as I've already mentioned, and she had a comfort zone, as I imagine you have a comfort zone. Esther had everything she wanted, everything she needed, right there in front of her. She didn't have to go save her people. She didn't need to do that, but she did. Being up here is out of my comfort zone, not going to lie. But you too can step out of your comfort zone. You can stand up for that kid in the hallway, or talk to that girl that nobody talks to, or be more than just a leader on the soccer team. Be an example. The call, that's a big part of Esther's story and of this week. Esther was called by God. I like to think there are two different types of calls. The first one is a loud or spoken call. The second one is a nudge. It's more of a whisper, a quiet call. The louder spoken call you see a lot in the Old Testament. Abraham gets a loud spoken call, Noah does, and so does Moses. Moses talks to God through a burning bush. If that doesn't say God is right here, right now, and you need to go do this, I don't know what does. Esther, on the other hand, she got a nudge that was more like the one they talk about in 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 11 and 12. It says, "The Lord said, 'Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by.' Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper." God is talking to Elijah in this part of the Bible. And Elijah was waiting for God in that loud spoken call, but God wasn't there. He was in that gentle whisper. That's what Esther experienced. I imagine some of you have experienced this nudge kind of call. It's that pit of the stomach feeling or that thought in the back of your mind that something isn't right or that you need to do something. Esther experienced that too. She, as I imagine anyways, she thought, okay, these people are going to die. I should probably do something now because I could potentially save them. Now, Esther responded to that call and made the hard decision to save her people, but the right one. And in the end, they all survived. The next part of this story is unification. Esther knew she couldn't go in front of the king's court alone. She knew she needed her God and her people. Esther relied on her God and her strength and trust in him to get her in and out alive. She also relied on her people's strength and trust in the Lord to get her in and out alive. 3 days before Esther was going to enter into the king's court, she asked her people to fast and pray. And she did that along with them. And they fasted and prayed for 3 days. And on the third day, Esther went into the court and came out alive. There's one more part in this week's motto and in Esther's story that's important, and that's blessed. I like to think that blessed is when you show trust and strength in the Lord, and he rewards you greatly. Esther and the Jewish people did that. They showed strength in the Lord, and he gave the Jewish people their lives, and he gave Esther Haman's estate and her life as well, and she also became a hero, one that we still talk about to this day. Now, because of their strength and trust in the Lord, they were blessed. Esther was a teenager. She was just like you and me. Through her strength and trust in the Lord, great was her reward. Strength and trust in the Lord can be hard at times, but you can do it. Breaking out of your comfort zone can be a challenge, but you can do it. Esther's just one example of how nothing is impossible with God.